communities. But just a word of caution, there's going to be a lot of people pulled off to the side. There's going to be people on the hoods of their cars and the back of their trucks. You, brother!
Casey, we appreciate the info. We've now got to go straight to that news conference to get you the very latest on everything that's going on.
Yeah, let's listen in.
Here we go.
Someone will be able to answer that for you that way. For those who are calling in, I'll pop in every so often and check if we have any questions from folks on the phone. Please make sure to address your questions when it's time directly to a specific person. Try to be concise and clear as possible so we can get as many questions in as possible. And if we do run out of time and you want to ask a follow-up question, feel free to email us at volcanomedia, volcanomedia@usgs.gov, and I'll put that email in the chat here, and we'll make sure to follow up to get you an answer. So with all that said, I am pleased to introduce our presenters. We are joined by Ken Hahn from the USGS Hawaiian Volcano Observatory, Talmadge Bagnall from the Hawaiian Civil Defense, and Jessica Farrakane from Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. So first up, I'd like Ken to go if possible.
Sure, thanks, Steve. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So as we know that, on Sunday night, the eruption started late Sunday night. It progressed to a northeast rift zone early Monday morning. 3 fissures opened up yesterday, down from the summit down to about the 10,500 foot level. Today, only the 3rd fissure is active. The upper 2 fissures became inactive around midday yesterday. And then last night, a smaller fissure opened up slightly downrift of the 3rd fissure. So we have a fissure number 4. Overnight, the main flow from the eruption is coming from fissure 3, and that stays this way this morning. Fissure 4 has only got minor flows from it that have traveled a little bit down the rift zone and have kind of hooked over, peeking over the top of the northeast rift zone. Last night, the lava flow from the fissure number 3 vent has traveled down the slopes of Mauna Loa and crossed the Mauna Loa Observatory access road. So it cut both power and access to the NOAA Mauna Loa Observatory facility on Mauna Loa. So it is now around 6 miles from the saddle road and is continuing to move downhill with the bulk of the eruptive material. So at about 4 miles from the saddle road, it's going to hit some flatter ground and presumably slow down considerably, and the mode of movement may change as well. Right now, it's a channelized flow and traveling at a fairly good speed, not super fast, but we're looking at less than a mile per hour, mainly for the advance rates right now. There continues to be a lot of gas emitted from this eruption. We are trying to quantify the numbers. Yesterday, it's difficult to measure the gas. We can't get right up under the plume near the source. And by the time you get down on the saddle road, it's difficult because it's so diffuse. So we're trying some new techniques to see if we can reduce those and get volumes of gas. But it's a lot more than Kilauea puts out typically. And today, just as yesterday, the winds are out of the south, so the plume is blowing to the north. So luckily, most of the island has remained pretty fog-free. But this fog plume we can see on maps is being transported to the north along the island chain. And that's pretty much the update for where things stand with the volcano as of this morning.
Perfect. Thank you, Ken. And we'll have questions for you here shortly. Next up.
Also, Steve, Mayor Roth is on the line as well today.
Perfect. I can actually, with that intro, Mayor Roth, would you like to chat and give us some updates? And then I'll move on to Talmadge.
All right. Hello, everybody. So last night we put another emergency order into play. We have no parking on the Daniel K. Inouye Highway. That's that area from mile 16 to mile 31. And what we're trying to do is not have people park on the highway, but park in designated parking areas, such as Gilbert Kelly Park and other places where there's designated places where people can park their car. The highway is a highway. People are driving 60 miles an hour, not a safe place for people to park. And so we're not saying not to go up there. We're just asking if you're going to go to a designated parking area that is safe. As Ken said, right now it's relatively best case scenario as far as preventing any danger to populations or any people. We don't see any need to issue any evacuations or anything like that. We will be closing our shelters in Kona as well as in Hala, as the need for having the shelters out there are no longer in order. That's all I have right now. Thank you, everybody. Aloha.
Great. Thank you very much, Mayor. Can we hear from Civil Defense?
Sorry, Steve, we just got out of another meeting and I don't think Talmadge has made it back yet.
I don't think he's made it back. Okay, well, let's pivot and go to the Park Service. Jessica, are you on and can you give us a briefing?
I am. Good morning and aloha, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to USGS for organizing these calls. I cannot stress the importance of our partnership and this unified approach to the current eruption at Mauna Loa. So kudos to you folks. I want to give a brief update about what's happening in Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. The park is open. And the viewing has been spectacular. And this morning I came up, I think it was about a little bit before 6 or something. You can see both eruptions from many viewpoints along the Kilauea caldera. We were in front of Volcano House this morning and you could see glow from the Kilauea current eruption. You could also look uprift to the slope of Mauna Loa. And Ken, I believe what we were seeing from the park this morning was that fissure number 4. You can see this photo was taken with an old camera this morning. So here to my, I think that's my right, that's the Kilauea lava lake glowing, and that is the Mauna Loa, I believe, fissure number 4. We could see that vigorously this morning. We had a spotting scope up there too, and it looked pretty magnificent. So the park is open. I know there's a lot of safety orders and emergency orders about Daniel K. Highway, etc., but your national park is open. It's open 24 hours. We have been having very vigorous visitation numbers. So we encourage people who are wanting to come to the park, because it's open 24 hours and the viewing is so good before sunrise and then after dark, that you try to time your visit before 9 a.m. or after 9 p.m. To avoid the crowds and crowded parking lots. The only thing that's really closed in the park related to this eruption right now is Mauna Loa Road. That's known locally sometimes as Strip Road. And that basically is just going to keep people safe and off of those high elevation areas where we have the eruption happening right now. In fact, some of those areas have been closed since October when Mauna Loa started to get feisty again. As a result, we did not have to enact any search and rescues once the eruption began. So that was great forward thinking from our emergency responders here. So that's 2 things I covered. Let's see. I also wanted just to add, this is a wonderful eruption. This is a rare time where we have 2 eruptions happening simultaneously. This is more than a spectacle to the people of Hawaii and to many others. This is a very sacred event that we are watching. We are watching Pele come to life to do a dual eruption. So this, just keep in mind, for many people coming here to pay their respects, this is quite a sacred event, and we are happy to interpret it that way. The last thing I wanted to add, if there are media who are interested in park news releases and you're not on my distribution list already, I will drop my email address in the chat and I am happy to add you. And that's really all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jessica. Do one more check with Civil Defense. If not, we'll open up for questions. Not seeing anything yet. Okay. Let's open up first. Jennifer, I saw that you had hopped in with your hand first, if you want to ask away.
Hi, this is Jennifer Kelleher from the Associated Press. I was hoping you Mayor Roth could elaborate a little bit on the shelter situation. At what point does he expect the shelters to close, and what did they look like overnight? How many folks stayed there overnight?
Hi, Jennifer. Yeah, so last night, I think that we had very few people. I don't think any, we had 0, I think, in Bahala. I think we may have had 4 or 5 people inside the shelter at Kona. I'll have to get more updated numbers on that, but clearly the danger for the Ka'u area and Kona area is gone, so there's really no need to have the shelter up there any longer.
Thank you very much. Tasha, or actually, I'll go with Jonathan. You got your camera on.
Sure, I'll answer those 2 things. I can't really speak for NOAA totally, but it's a NOAA part of their global monitoring laboratory system. They have 4 labs around the world, and they monitor the atmospheric conditions. And so this is also the place where the global CO2 record comes from, which is kind of odd because we're emitting a lot of CO2 into their observatory right now. But so it plays a very important role in our understanding of the atmosphere. And they have a lot of very advanced laboratory equipment and equipment for measuring a lot of different things about the atmospheric change. Aside from that, I can't really, you'd need to talk to NOAA to get specifics about what they're doing and what the impact is. The loss of power has got to be impacting their operation, but I don't know exactly how that impact is playing out right now. And as far as impacting Hilo, what I can say is it's just very early in this eruption right now. The lava flow hasn't even made it down in the saddle, where typically these lava flows slow down greatly as they progress across there. And as I've said before, the average length of one of these fissure eruptions is approximately 2 weeks or so or thereabouts. And so if it's that kind of level, and it just depends on, we have not been able to get a really good effusion rate yet. We're hoping to do that today. We just don't know what the advance rates of this lava flow are going to be over that flat ground. We're going to be starting modeling fairly soon, but for putting those models out a couple of weeks in advance usually just ends up to a lot of confusion in the community. And so until we know for sure that the lava flow is going to impact the community, we'll just treat it as something that is, staying up in the saddle area for the time being. And we'll just watch it very, very carefully. We're thinking very, very much about, advances and what would have to happen if it did approach that community. But again, the probability is low for historic eruptions. Only 2 have made it, and one of them was very different. It was a long-term eruption. It took a year for it to make it down into the outskirts. And, so even so, these lava flows are like ribbons. So, even if it impacted the community, in general, the community impact would be concentrated in specific areas.
And Jonathan, the road that you're asking about, very, 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 very little impact, if any, especially where the lava has crossed the road. Very few people go up there.
So really the next thing that we worry about is the impact of if the lava were to cross the saddle road, but there's no certainty to that even at this point, and that's probably days away. So we just have to watch, right? We can't really predict what Mother Nature or Pele is going to do here. We can only monitor it and get the information to people so that everybody knows what's going on and can make appropriate decisions.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Ken. Next up, Tasha.
Hi, yeah. I'm Tasha Zemke. I'm with Outside Magazine. And I have two questions. The first is for the mayor, and it looks like air traffic is normal from Hilo and Kona. I just wanted to confirm that. And then second for Jessica, I wondered about the crowds that you're seeing for the volcanoes and what the two ideal viewpoints are for folks who wanted to see Kilauea and Mauna Loa eruptions. Thank you.
So as far as the air traffic, my understanding is it should be open and fine. And that brings up something else about tourism, and keep on getting a lot of questions about should tourists come. It's actually a great time to come. People are here. I mean, you're seeing some of the most unbelievable sights ever, and you don't have to go up to the Saddle Road. You can see it from Hilo, you can see it from Kona, you can see it from Ka'u. Waikoloa, people are reporting, and they're putting up pictures that are just unbelievable at night of the views.
Thank you. Jessica?
From in the park, the photo that's behind me, this was taken this morning right before sunrise at Kupina'i Pali. I can spell that for you in the chat. That's also known as Waldron Ledge. That is a very short walk from the Kilauea Visitor Center. This is a viewpoint where you can actually see both the Kilauea and Mauna Loa flows. And again, the park's open 24 hours a day. Another really good vantage point in Hawaii Volcanoes National Park that is easy for visitors to get to with ample parking nearby is from behind the Volcano House Hotel. And again, that's a very short walk from the Kilauea Visitor Center.
Okay, what kinds of crowd numbers are you seeing there?
I don't have an estimate on our visitation and the number of visitors that were in the park yesterday. I'm going to imagine it was several thousand. Today is a cruise ship day in Hilo. We, I believe, have the Pride of America docking shortly, and expected to be a very busy day today. So again, we really emphasize people try to come before 9 in the morning or after 9 at night.
Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you very much. I just want to check with our people on the phone. We have somebody from a 202 area code. Do you have a question? If not, we have an 808 number as well. Okay. Let's move over to Mike. Do you have a question?
Yeah. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. I guess in the absence of Talmadge, this one's probably going to be for Mayor Roth. What is the plan of the county if the lava does end up cutting off Saddle Road?
If it comes to Saddle Road, or if it comes off of Saddle Road?
If it cuts off Saddle Road or crosses Saddle Road.
So, we're working together with the state and other partners. We actually just had a briefing this morning where we talked about that. One of the things that, of course, would happen is the highways would be more used along the Hamakua coast. The Nainui Bridge, which is one way right now, should be 2 ways in the next couple of days. So people will have to use those highways. But we asked everybody also to start thinking about how that's going to impact, whether it's water, whether it's electric, whether it's different departments, transportation, to come up with their individual plans. But for pretty much everybody, it's going to be using those other highways to get around.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I see one more hand. Jonathan, do you have another question?
Yeah, probably more for Mitch Roth and Ken. Yes, I do have one more question, guys. I think you can hear me. Probably more for Mitch Roth there, Mayor Roth, and Ken Hahn. Wondering more about that Saddle Road situation. How far is that lava flow from reaching that road? Last report, I think it was about 6 miles. And how many people do you think would be impacted by that? I know you said some general things right there, talking about what precautions, but what specific areas are we talking about? And then second question, this is more for our people wanting to see the lava, Mayor. Can Gilkahele Park be opened up for nighttime parking, you think?
So let me take a little bit of that. As far as Gilkahele Park, that That is open up 24 hours. There's also other places where people are going, and people are going to the to Gilkelly Park. There's other areas where people can park. There's some hiking trails where people generally park. There's a bird trail where there's some bathrooms in that area where people park. So there's actually, several different places where people can park and view the lava. Actually, you can see the lava from every place. I see it from my house. I was coming out of civil defense last night, and you could see it from the airport. Some amazing views. The area, and I think Ken is probably a better person to talk about this, where we're looking at right now, but it follows that 1939 flow. And just in case you're wondering about that 1939 flow, or any of the flows when you hear 1984 or other flows, if you go to the Hawaii County Civil Defense webpage, on their volcano hazards page, there's a whole bunch of really great information, including maps of different flows. And so we really want to encourage people to go there. Those maps and a lot of that information is from the USGS, but it's a centralized place where you can get information, hazard maps, and what's happening for the island. And I'll let Ken maybe talk about that 1939 flow and where we're looking at right now, the projections of things happening. Ken?
Yeah, so it is following, right now, kind of it's on the track that it would go down and kind of follow the general trend of the 1935 lava flow, which was part and part Hawaii. Again, we don't know exactly how long it would take to traverse the 4 miles of flats. It is down below that Mauna Loa Observatory Road and moving down, so it's somewhere between 5 and 6 miles from the road right now. And again, there's so much unknown, we're not even sure it will reach the highway, but that is certainly the next step in progress if it continues on these trends. It's also possible that we could have another fissure open up down Rift and drain away some of the supply that's feeding this lava flow. That's not atypical of these types of eruptions. So I don't know if that answered your question. If you have anything else, I'd be glad to answer it.
Yeah, just one more. What are we talking about as far as speeds of the flow and the lengths of the flow and the height of the fissures? If you could recap us on that as well.
Sure. Right now, the flow is pushing somewhere around 5 to 6 miles long. The height of the fissures there are on the order of somewhere around 50 to 100 feet right now. Yesterday, the maximum fissure height was between 100 and 200 feet. Fissure number 4 is considerably less. Its fissure fountains are only a few feet high. So it's not nearly as energetic as fissure number 3 is. So they're pretty spectacular. So you can see fissure number 3 from quite a distance away. Fissure 4 probably less so, except in the early morning or late afternoon hours when you can see the glowing.
And as far as length of the flows and speed, yeah.
Yeah, the length of the flow is about 5 to 6 miles right now, the current flow. The speed is less than 1 mile per hour. We don't have the exact speed yet. That's another thing that we're hoping to get, but it's not moving particularly fast, right? Not moving particularly slow for big flow. That's, they can get down to as little as maybe on the order of 1/10 of a mile per hour. So it's still moving at a reasonably good clip, but not super fast.
Thank you. I just want to check in again. Do we have anybody from Civil Defense in the last few minutes? If not, I know we have at least one more question. Nope. Okay. Mike, did you have another follow-up?
Yeah, I did. Just to follow up on something that Ken said, I know you said it's the flow is about 6 miles away from Saddle Road, and it's about 4 miles away, 2 miles away, I think, from the flatter ground around the saddle. Based on what you said about the speed, that should be hitting the flatter ground sometime today, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to assume constant speed and constant lava supply to the flow, then one would expect that, probably later today it might hit, or early tomorrow, something like that. It might hit the flatter ground, the base of the slope. But, again, these things, we're still early in the eruption when things are unstable. So, I hate to put too much weight onto those things. It does appear to be making a pretty strong flow at the moment, and this could be the flow it concentrates things in. On the other hand, it could just as easily shift and start another flow as well. So.
Okay, thank you. Before I tap Jonathan again, is there anyone else who hasn't had a chance to ask a question that has something they'd like to ask? No? Okay. And I guess probably our last question here, Jonathan, your follow-up.
Yeah, this is to be my last question as well. So I know we were talking about that modeling, Ken, and you said it was sort of too early to even start putting that stuff out. But I'm just wondering from you and the mayor, if by chance, I know there's no danger right now, but if by chance a populated or area with people or structures was in danger, how much warning do you put out to the public? Days out? How many days out? What's the procedure there?
Well, there's that's really dependent on the conditions, right? Obviously before this eruption, we were very busy in the communities putting out warning that this could start very quickly and that people on the Southwest Rift Zone could see lava within hours of the beginning of the eruption. So we were very concerned about that time, and we had some historical precedents that showed us that there would be that timing. We don't really have a good historical precedent for this, and there's just so many variables that I just find that trying to make these models go out, it just puts anxiety into the community, oftentimes for no reason. So looking in the crystal ball, generally we can look a few days ahead, and we don't really want to go further than that because this is a natural system that is subject to rapid change.
Yeah, I agree with what Ken said, but looking at what we did, I think we were 2 months from this event where we were going to different community members, giving presentations out there. We've also brought together our teams, which includes, the people from the county, the people from the state, various groups. We had, faith communities that been brought in. We've had the gas company, Helco, a lot of the other players out there in the community. And so we started planning prior to this happening. Now, as far as evacuations and things, as Ken said, that's a very fluid thing. And, you saw in this event that we did not get to the state where we were issuing an evacuation, and that was all based on the information that we were getting from USGS, information that we were seeing, for example, on their webcams, and the information that we had. I guess for me, this has been a very fluid event, and so things change pretty quickly, but we're trying to be as conservative as we can as well. And that's why we opened up these shelters, even though we did not issue an evacuation. Is that we knew that people were going to be self-evacuating, but there didn't come a need at this time to actually have an evacuation. I don't know if that makes sense, but hopefully that helps.
It does. And just real quickly, you mentioned the shelters there. I know you said they're closing, but is that infrastructure of the shelter staying in place, those cots and food and supplies there, is that going to stay in place for a while just in case they are needed?
Well, we have that infrastructure ready to go at any time we need it. And so it'll go back into storage, but it took us maybe an hour to stand up the shelters at both locations. And the bigger issue there was not so much the cots and everything, was the personnel, getting the personnel ready. And, we're calling people at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, telling them, hey, we need you to start prepping to go down and open up a shelter, and, as quickly as we can. I think we probably had that shelter up and ready about 3:30 in the morning yesterday. So, it depends on the situation. So we're looking at everything. So I don't know if that answers, Jonathan, about how long it takes to do this, but we've been planning for months for this event, but we actually continuously plan year around for any kind of disaster, whether it's a tsunami, whether it's an earthquake, whether it's rain events or volcanic eruption. We're continuously preparing, but in this event, we went out a couple of months prior, started getting the warnings to get everybody in place. And I think that's really paid off a lot during this event.
Thank you, Mayor. And just going to throw out another invite. Are there any other closing remarks that any of our presenters would like to give? And if not, are there any other remaining questions that have not been asked that we would like to?
Are you all going to be doing this every day?
That's a good question. It's to be determined. So I think depending on activity, whether we do another one later this afternoon or evening or a subsequent one tomorrow, that's all still up for discussion. So I'll use that as a segue though. If you want to receive media advisory notices for future briefings, please email us at thevolcanomedia@usgs.gov and we'll put you on the distribution list. Or you can contact me directly at SSOB as in boy, IE at usgs.gov. So SSOB. Yeah, with that.
All right, guys.
It seemed like that was the only question they didn't have an answer to, is whether or not they're going to do this on the day. But you did hear Mayor Roth saying that they prepared for this event, particularly for months, and they prepare year-round for any possible emergency.
Yeah, the new information that came out, Mayor Roth wanting to remind the public that it's going to get busy out there. A lot of people want to see this spectacular display. Parking is not allowed on Daniel K. Inouye Highway. You've got to park in the designated areas, including Hawaii Volcanoes National Park.
Also, he did not particularly discourage visitors, said that now is actually a good time to come and see that flow. So interesting. Again, we will continue to monitor anything that happens throughout the day and, of course, again on sunrise tomorrow.
And those updates coming from our sister station in Hawaii, Hawaii News Now, taking you to a live update of the ongoing response from state officials of the active volcano Mauna Loa. Now, I wanted to recap some of what was said in case you jumped in on this live stream, maybe a little later. This has been a long anticipated eruption. Mauna Loa has erupted 33 times since the late 1800s, the last being in 1984. So this is a historic moment, of course, for the state. But as officials have stated, not an active threat to the community. Mayor Mitch Roth even said, along with Governor David Ige, lava flows are not threatening those downslope communities in the nearby areas. That is not a problem at this time, but something that they are actively monitoring and providing updates on day by day. Now, we also heard from Hawaii Volcano National Park officials saying that they are encouraging tourism at this time and that this is quite a historical moment and a sight to see, but encouraging smart tourism. And I wanted to talk a little about that as a former Hawaii resident. This is a very spiritual event for a lot of the local population on the island, of course, tying to the historic spiritual tales of goddess Pele, the creator of the Hawaiian Islands, of course, the god of volcanoes, tying this to this event that we're seeing at Mauna Loa. So they are saying, be respectful that for a lot of the local population, this is a spiritual moment. And as you are being a tourist, going to the Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, seeing those sites of this magnificent eruption, be mindful of that history and of that meaning to the locals that live on the island. Of course, for now, we are going to continue to monitor this and have more updates for you on our website, atlantanewsfirst.com.